Are we ready? Ready? Hi, guys. My name's Chad Payne. I'm an alcoholic. Before I forget to say this, I've got my email address and contact information written on. Katie has cards. I don't have cards. I do. I just don't know where they are. And I also have the information for Primary Purpose Group online. If anybody's interested in checking out that book study, we do an online book study on Wednesday nights. About 150 people come every week, people from all over the world, and it's kind of like I call it kind of like a big book workshop. We go through the book line by line, and what we do, if there's anyone who's not familiar with it, the way that we do that is we try our best to leave our experience out of the discussion as much as possible and really focus on what the book is saying. So in that sense, it's a real book study. And you know, none of us are saying that you should leave your experience out in AA meetings. It's just this one. That's what we do. We understand experience is the lifeblood of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, that's what we have. But on that one, we kind of focus on another aspect of it, which is knowledge. You know, we talk a lot about getting somewhere and sharing our experience, strength, and hope. But I like in the book where it talks about sharing our experience and our knowledge. And you know, it's kind of interesting. One of the things that I'll hear somebody say behind the podium is that we have no teachers in AA and we have no experts in AA. And I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm not dogging you for saying this. I get it. I understand. But it's funny, that same person, you know, 5 minutes later will say, and I have to remain teachable. Like, why? We don't have any teachers, you know, but that's me being a smart ass. So, but I can tell you this. My responsibility in AA is to be a teacher. Not just a teacher, though. I need to be a little bit more of a student than I am a teacher, me personally. I know that. I know I got a lot more to learn than I have to teach, for sure. But I've been given a message that saved my life. I've been given a message that not only saved my life, but allowed me to thrive in this world. And I want to share that, you know. And then the other thing about being an expert, you know, it's kind of funny. Well, take Katie, for instance. How many hours of inventory has she listened to? If you have hit 5 golf balls in your life, you have no idea what you're doing. If you have hit 10,000 golf balls in your life, you got a better idea of what you're doing. If you've hit 100,000, you might be approaching the level of expert, right? We become an expert at things by doing it over and over and over. I can tell you right now that I can sit down and write a piece of inventory much, much quicker, and it can be much more effective and much deeper and much more thorough than it was 20 years ago. You know, and that's just because I've done it a lot. So the idea that you know that we can't become more effective at these things, to me is kind of silly sometimes. I don't even know why I was going off on that. But what we're going to do this a little bit out of order. We kind of messed up on how we were thinking we would do this. Oh yeah. Here's the other thing. My information's up there. If there's anybody listening on tape, the email address is mpayne9@gmail.com. It's M as in Michael, P-A-Y-N-E, and the number 9@gmail.com. That's how you can contact me and get that information. And I'm going to talk about fear and sex inventory right now, and then Katie's going to come back and do resentment in a few minutes. And as far as the way that I actually write this stuff, I have people contact me a lot and ask me questions about that and how do you do this. And what I did is I just took some of my inventory and I typed it up on a Google Doc and I just send it to them. You know, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, and I'm not saying that the way that I do it's the right way. I'm just saying it's the way I do it currently. It's not the way I did it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but it's the way I do it today. And if you're interested in that, send me an email and I'll send all this stuff to you. So Katie did such a great job on the third step. She always does. And what I want to move into here is this fear part of the inventory. And the interesting line to me is that on the bottom of page 68, it says sometimes, well, at the top of page 68, it says sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. And I know I was listening, I believe Bob D. do a workshop, and he said something about how fear robs us of experience, and in that way it's like stealing. And I thought, that's really interesting. I understand that. I can see that fear has robbed me of a lot of experience in life, but I'm not sure that's what Bill was trying to say in this sentence. And then I got a hold of the original manuscript. How many of you guys have seen the book that started it all? Okay, great. If you don't know what that is, it's a big coffee table book, and it's a reprint of the original manuscript of the big book, which is what Bill wrote. Now, this is a little bit of an oversimplification, but Bill wrote this, and then he handed it to a lot of other people in the fellowship and outside the fellowship. Members of the clergy, members of the medical field, and other members of AA, and they made changes to it. One of the big changes they made to it is instead of it saying you do this, they made it say we did this. So when you're reading this copy of the original manuscript, you'll see that a lot of the yous are crossed out and changed to we. But there are other changes too. Here's one of them. In the original manuscript, it said sometimes we think fear ought to be classed as a sin with stealing, but they took as a sin out. Now that's interesting, because to me, when I learn about what a sin is, it's something that separates you from God. So now we're making it clear on why we're inventorying fear. Again, it's something that separates me from God. And I'm sure a line that Katie will bring up here later when she does this other part, in the beginning before it does the resentment inventory, or in the beginning of when it first starts talking about resentment, it says, being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. So we're looking at manifestations of self. Why are we looking at manifestations of self? Because manifestations of self block me from God. I remember sitting down with a guy, and it was when I first started sponsoring a lot of people. And I was having this experience where I was going through the steps with these newcomers all the time. And I would get to the third step, and I would start trying to break down the failure of self-will, just like Katie did earlier. And I would get a question every now and then from a new guy that'd say, why are we talking about this? What's this got to do with drinking? And I posed that question to a guy, and he said, nothing. It's got nothing to do with drinking. And that really stuck with me, and I really got to thinking about it. Then why, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? And Katie read the line. It says, above everything, we alcoholics must stop drinking. No, that's not what it says. But it also doesn't say, above everything, we alcoholics had to develop a relationship with God. It doesn't say that. It says, above everything, we alcoholics had to be rid of this selfishness. Why is that above everything? And see, what I understand today is that in step one, I find out that I have a hopeless, progressive, fatal illness called alcoholism. In step two, I find out there's a solution for that. It's a spiritual awakening. And then in step three, I find out that I can't have one. I can't have a spiritual awakening. I cannot wake up spiritually because I'm blocked. And what blocks me? This self-will. This blocks me from being able to wake up and experience God. And that's what we're about in AA. We're not about believing in God, though that is part of it. But what we're really about is an experience with God. And there are many of us walking around believing there's a God, but we're not having an experience with God because we're blocked. And I know that, and it was Katie that woke me and a lot of other guys up to this, especially as men. We'll get up in the morning and we'll read 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 meditation books, and we'll say a prayer, and those of us that have a little hippie in us, we'll sit for 30 minutes in meditation. And it's all an intellectual exercise because we're blocked, because we're not looking at what it is that's blocking me. I don't even want to look at that stuff. You know why? Because I didn't do a review. I haven't written inventory. I'm not looking within at what it is that's blocking me. So AA is this process of undoing, not doing. I'm getting free of what it is that's blocking me. And here's been my experience. Self-will goes down because I'm doing this work, and as that happens, God consciousness goes up. They can't both be up here. I can't be living in self-will and be experiencing God at the same time. It goes like this. And that's why so much of AA is about getting unblocked. So fear can be classed as a sin, and why? Because it blocks me from God. And what's going on here is that because I don't even have a real relationship with life. When I'm in self-will, what I have is a very sick and twisted relationship with the way I think life should be. And it's all I think about. This is how it should be. This is how I need to make it be. And what happens is I spend all my time trying to arrange life to be a way where I don't ever have to experience any discomfort or any inconvenience. Everything goes the way I want it to go, so I get exactly what I want because I've got a real clear picture most of the time of how life should be. Now, it changes regularly, and that's why I'm such a producer of confusion rather than harmony. Everybody around me is going, my God, he got what he wants. What's he want now? You know? And that's kind of where I live. But what that does is that generates a constant state of fear because things are not going to be the way that I need them to be. And it says it touches every aspect of our lives because I'm trying to arrange every aspect of my life. And that's what I'm consumed with. And it's a scary place to be because self-reliance fails me. I am incapable of managing life. Life in itself is unmanageable. And I'm working my butt off to try to manage it. And on a bad day, it's a train wreck. And on a good day, it's going my way. And some of us are better at it than others. When Katie talks about how well she was able to arrange life in untreated alcoholism, not me. I do not arrange life well. When she talks about the ego turned inward, that's more how I am. And that's not who I want to be. I want to stand up here and tell you I march right in and I tell them how it is. No, not me. I freeze up. I freeze up in fear. I'm afraid to do anything. She moves at you, I freeze. And that's not cool. I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to be that guy, but that's where I go. I go into avoidance, procrastination, seeking out distraction, do nothing. You know, when you talk about this touching every aspect of our lives, I mean, Mark would talk about how free you want to be, man. I want to go deep. I want to be as free as I can be. And I can tell you this, I found out I was having some struggles with money. I was a high school teacher for 15 years, having struggles with money. And you know, I'm sure that all professions are this way, but I can tell you from my experience that a lot of teachers, where I was working, we would look at ourselves kind of as victims, right? As victims of teachers are underpaid and they're overworked and they have to deal with this and that and every year, you know. And I don't know, I think that's probably pretty much across the board in any profession. We can go into that kind of status anywhere, but I was talking to someone in AA about this and someone pointing this stuff out to me, and thankfully people were able to walk me back enough and like, why did you become a teacher? It's like, well, I became a teacher because I want to help the youth of America. And thankfully I have people in AA that go, Chad, now are we clear that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of your troubles? Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that line. It's in the big book. Is it possible you had a selfish motive in this thing? What does a selfish motive look like to become it? I was like, well, yeah, I did want summers off. But then it's deeper than that. It's deeper. It's deeper than that for a guy like me. And when I really look back at it and I started to look at my thought process, see what happened is I got sober at 28. I went back to school at 30. I burned down the whole college thing before I got sober. But I go back to school when I'm 30 and I'm deciding what I'm going to do. I had options. You know, one of those options may be to go into business. That's way too uncertain for a guy like me. Another option, and I looked at different options, another option was to become a teacher. I'm pretty good at math. I can get a job wherever I go. It seemed like a safe route. And some people would tell you that's a responsible route. But I can tell you this, that was part of the reason that I chose to do it, is because it is a responsible choice. Everybody needs a math teacher. It's hard to find. You can go anywhere, live anywhere, do that job. You'll make enough money. You got a retirement. You can pay your bills and all that. It's the safe route. Well, guess what's driving that decision? Fear. It's another form of fear. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't regret it at all. I'm so glad that I did that. And I found myself, God didn't throw me to the curb and say, well, you made a decision based in fear. You're on your own, bud. No, man, God put me right where I needed to be, right with the people I needed to be. And I had a great 15 years of teaching. It was awesome. You know, so God's always going to open doors for me. But when I'm sitting there talking about the fact that, yeah, you know, I'm driving this little Hyundai and I'm this long sober, and I look around and there's people that have all these successful businesses in AA and doing this and that. I'm like, dang, yeah, I made a decision based in self. I set the ball rolling. What is it? Well, let me just read what it says here. I just love the way they put this. It says, it's set in motion, fear, set in motion, trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. You know what my misfortune was? I was overworked and underpaid. You know? And then I see somebody next to me that hadn't been sober as long as me that now has a successful business, working about 15 or 20 hours a week and making about 5 times the money I do. Because they took a risk when I was afraid to. Now, I'm not telling you if you're this or you're that, you're doing something wrong. I'm just saying that's my experience, and that's what I've found out through doing some of this, and I want to be free. I want to be free. I don't want fear to drive any of my decisions, you know, though it still does today. The book says we do an inventory, and I may read a piece, depending on how much time we have, I may read a piece of fear inventory. I know I want to read that. I've already had like 4 or 5 people say, you're gonna read that inventory about throwing the apple out the window in the school bus? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get to that at some point. Everybody likes to laugh at me on that one. I do too. It's pretty funny. But what's going on here? Why I live in this fear and why I'm always just trying to arrange life in a way that suits me and do all these things is that Katie read this line. I love this line, that I'm a victim of the delusion that I can rest satisfaction and happiness outside the world if I just manage well. If I just manage everything well, then I can be happy and satisfied, right? And that's kind of what I'm living on, and it creates 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is I don't get what I want and then I can't be happy. And scenario number 2 says I do get what I want, and then I'm happy and satisfied for about 10 minutes, and then I need something else. So living there, I'm in a chronic state of fear. Now, what does that fear drive me to do? What it drives me to do today is avoid it altogether and just sit back and procrastinate. 100 forms of fear. Sometimes, though, fear drives me to a point where I get so frustrated trying to manage something that I blow up and lose my temper and throw something. You know, so many of these things that I do that cause me so much trouble are all driven by fear. Because it all comes back to this idea that I'm trying to arrange life in a way that suits me. So when I do this fear inventory, it asks me, what is the fear, and then why do I have it? Now, when it asks what is the fear, the way that I like to do it is get real specific. And you know, Katie and I both here, when we're talking about this inventory process, what we're going to be talking a lot about is writing inventory in sobriety. I think most of us are pretty clear on how to come in here and write a 4-step, a big 4-step, or take a newcomer and show them how to write a 4-step and then do a big 5th step. But I'm talking more about continuous inventory. You know, what happens when I'm consumed with a fear? I talk to somebody about it, I pray about it, and it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. You know, I need to sit down and put pen to paper. And I can tell you this, my flight was delayed an hour. Actually, that worked out pretty well for me because I had to write inventory in the airport. You know, things didn't go too well at home on Thursday night, and Chad didn't show up very well. Actually, I kind of thought that Chad did pretty good considering the circumstances, and then I wrote the inventory, and I realized Chad did really bad. Really bad. And, yeah, so I'll be sitting down here with somebody pretty soon because I've got some work to do. So then, you know, we're looking at, if I'm writing a piece of inventory, what is the fear, and I want to get specific with it. I would much rather see somebody come to me with, instead of saying fear of abandonment, I would rather it say, I'm afraid she's going to leave me because this guy's more attractive and I lost my job. Or I don't know. That just popped. I don't know. But something specific, right? What is it that's really rolling around you? Why do you have this fear? Well, what are the old ideas? Or another way to put it is the belief systems. What do I believe about me, believe about God, believe about you, believe about the world that would cause me to have this fear? And that's what these are. These are all my old ideas. And the old ideas don't have to be all that old. But these are the things that I'm carrying around on how I think things work that would cause me to live in this fear. And then I want to look at where self-reliance has failed me. How do I act when I have this fear? That's really eye-opening. What is fear driving me to do? And when it says we're driven by 100 forms of fear, again, I agree. I think it could be 1,000 forms of fear. It comes in all different ways, all different things, and really touches every aspect. And then it goes on to say there's a better way. We're now on a different basis. Notice back here on page 60, it says on that basis. He's almost always in collision with something or somebody. What basis? Well, it says a life run on self-will. So when I'm on the basis of self-will, that's what brings up this issue of living in fear. And now it talks about this new basis, the basis of trusting and relying on God. And you know how I get to that? I fulfill my end of the deal. That deal on the top of page 63 makes my life much simpler. My job is no longer to arrange life in a way that suits me. My job is to stay close to God and be of service. God can run this. It's not my job anymore. I'm out of management. It's above my pay grade. Not doing that great a job with it anyway. And even when it does go well, I'm stressed out. Even when it goes well, I live in a high state of stress. And guys, this stuff is not easy. When I told you about the realization that I had on why I became a teacher, that sucked. I don't want to face that. And what happens is there's a level here where there's a part of me that knows I don't want to face that darkness. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep it shoved down here. I'm going to live right here with my head just above water, and that's how I'm going to walk around and focus on, what's going. And I'd rather not dig deep. But that's where I find the freedom, and I believe that unconsciously that's why a lot of us don't stay. It's kind of a program of grow or go. And what happens is we spend that first year of sobriety, this is great. I don't have the obsession. Do you think at 21 years sober, I wake up in the morning and go, what a great day, I don't have the obsession to drink? About 5 days a year, I get that. The other 360, I wake up going, this ain't right. Thank God for step 11. We need to start it early. This stuff is tough to face. And really what I understand today, and don't worry, I'll try not to get real hippie on you over the weekend. I say that because that's me. I do energy center meditations, and, we used to go to kirtans and chant Hare Krishna, and we do, all kinds of crazy stuff. I've done all kinds of cool things that in addition to our 11th step, not instead of, but in addition to. But this fear lives in here, and it's such a driving force. It's such a driving force. And to do this work, we get down to this stuff, and we're able to kind of release this as we see through it. It's all an illusion. Okay, I'm going to move in. So in the remaining 45 minutes I have before Katie comes up here. Can you guys believe I did that last night? My timer was beeping at me, and I'm thinking, somebody needs to turn off their damn phone. And Katie's back there going, wonder how much of my time he's going to take. It says, many of us need an overhauling there. Where do we need an overhauling? Sex. Yes. And it says many of us, and that's been my experience. There are a few of us in AA who come in, work the steps, start helping people, get married, buy a house, have babies, and live happily ever after. And then there's the rest of us. We come into AA, we work the steps, we start helping people, we get in a relationship, and it is game on. Welcome to overwhelming display of your character defects. Right? I see a couple heads nodding. This is the right room. Yeah, and I actually, and some people who know the history better than me are probably wish I would shut up about this, but I kind of put us in a couple of categories, kind of the Bill Wilsons and the Dr. Bobs, and I for a long time thought I'm in the Dr. Bob category, and here's what that is. Let me just tell you, here's what Dr. Bob says in his story, if I can find this in time. There's nothing like watching somebody get up here and flip through the book and not find a page. Dr. Bob says, "It's a most wonderful blessing to be relieved of the terrible curse with which I was afflicted. My health is good, and I've regained my self-respect and the respect of my colleagues. My home life is ideal, and my business is as good as can be expected in these uncertain times." That's Dr. Bob with 2 or 3 years of sobriety. My home life is ideal. Let's get back to Bill. Where's Bill in here? Bill says, "We abandoned ourselves to helping others find a solution. It was fortunate, right? I was not too well at the time, and I was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment that sometimes nearly drove me back to drink." I think Bill and Bob had a little different experiences. Bob, it took him a long time to shake the craving for alcohol, 2.5 years according to his story. And I'm trying to read up on the AA stuff right now. I'm trying to be a good AA. I read Comes of Age. I'm reading Pass It On, Dr. Bob and the Good Old. I'm trying to read this stuff. And I noticed that Bill said about Bob, he said, Dr. Bob wasn't quite as neurotic as some of the rest of us. He just really liked the grog. Now, for one thing, I think we should bring back the word grog. That's a great word. Next time you're in a meeting, talk about the grog. Let's bring it back. Yeah, so anyway, back to this thing. Thank God for the Dr. Bobs in our fellowship that can keep us a little bit more, on the straight and narrow. Turns out I'm more like Bill, and it really shows up in the relationships area. I'm crazy in sobriety. That's what I'm getting at. I'm crazy, not crazy the way Katie is. I would never yell at somebody. Charlie said that one time. I said, I would never yell at the guy in the Sprint store. And then later after the meeting, Charlie goes, "What does that say about me?" And I thought about that for a while. And I'm the guy where it all lives up here. It all lives up here. And then I'm at the family function, and I'm the guy that can't smile and won't engage in conversation. Maybe I should have yelled at the guy at the Sprint store and released some of that. And then I can show up and be present and be cheerful. But the point, that's not the solution. Don't go yell at the guy at the Sprint store. What is the solution, though? It's to get down to this. Just because I'm not acting that way doesn't mean it's not there. I still got to get down to this stuff, and thank God for this inventory process. Okay, I've talked just a little bit about this sex inventory. I'm not to be the arbiter. I'm not the judge. You want to be relationship in the first year, maybe not, whatever. That's not my job. My job is to tell you this. If you're going to get in a relationship, hopefully you've made your amends. You're living in 10 and 11. You're sponsoring some people. But let's keep the focus there. And if you're gonna start dating, let's double up. You got to have twice as many sponsees because you're going to need them, right? If you're the type that I am. So it gives me a great set of questions here, and then it goes on to talk about this sane and sound ideal. So the way I get to the sane and sound ideal is I see what's not working. And then I like to do the sane and sound ideal after 6 and 7, after we've taken this stuff to God. And I like a current sane and sound ideal. My sane and sound ideal is not how to date in early sobriety. I'm 21 years sober and I'm 12 years into a relationship. I've got to have a new sane and, I'll give you an example. A couple of the things on my current sane and sound ideal are to have direct conversation instead of making passive-aggressive comments. Yeah, that's how I control the person I love more than anyone in this world, is I make passive-aggressive comments that bring up shame in her so that she will act the way I want her to act. I'm your spiritual speaker. So that's on my current sane and sound ideal. It says we can treat sex as any other problem, and a lot of times we'll use this as a conduct inventory. And I've got a sane and sound ideal here just as an example for something that's more current. This was something that I was doing to take this online class and get this certification. And I was having a lot of struggles with it, and I was procrastinating and avoiding and doing those kind of things and dreading it and not wanting to do it and forcing myself to sit down for 2 hours where I was focused for 20 minutes and distracted for an hour 40. And I read the inventory actually to a guy that I sponsor, and he talked about some of this stuff. And after I took this to God in 6 and 7 and saw these character defects and old ideas, here's the sane and sound ideal I came up with. Get excited. Take each step, the study, everything you do with enthusiasm. Recognize and acknowledge spiritual power and guidance in this area of life. Embrace internal resistance as an indicator you're on the right track. If I'm resisting, that's a good thing. We're on to something. Trust God with the outcome, success or failure. Use specific prayer or visualization. Humble yourself and ask for help. And then here was the big one that he brought to my attention. Carry the same attitude you have with AA into this endeavor. And I can read that every morning during my prayer and meditation and then go about something with a completely different attitude. And then the last thing I want to say here about this relationships thing is this idea of relapse. And on page 70, it's such a good page, and it talks to us not just about, I don't think this is just strictly about stuff in relationships, though that's a big one, but about any conduct. If we take this paragraph out by itself and it says, suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble, does this mean we're going to drink? Well, it depends. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we'll be forgiven and learned our lesson. If not, we're sure to drink. When we're acting outside our values, outside that sane and sound ideal, which we're going to fall short, are we going to drink or not? How do we know if we're sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things? Well, I tell you, one pretty good indicator that I'm sorry for what I've done and I'm willing to let God take me to better things is I put pen to paper. I write a piece of inventory. I read it to somebody. I get humble. I get transparent. I go make the amends. That's a pretty good indicator that I'm sorry for what I have done and I'm willing to let God take me to better things. If not, if I keep engaging in that behavior and just sweeping it under the rug or denying it, not talking to anybody about it, that's dangerous territory for an alcoholic. And back to a relationship, Julie and I had a lot of struggles in this area. We still have struggles today. They're not over. That's why I wrote inventory Thursday night, at the airport on Friday. But we in the first 2 or 3 years of our relationship, we fought like crazy. We had bad fights. I mean, fights where she's crying, I'm throwing something across the house. It was bad, right? I'm not proud of that stuff, but I'm sharing it up here because I'm not the only one in AA that has these kind of fights in relationships, and I know that. And we were listening to something one time, and it talked about the spiritual purpose of a relationship. And here's my interpretation of what this person said much more eloquently than I say, is we get in a relationship with somebody, and they have a special knack for finding our buttons and pushing them. And I have a special knack for finding their buttons and pushing them. And it's a divine appointment that two people have come together to grow. Now, that's not to say that you're supposed to stay in that relationship until it becomes happy. But in this moment, God's taken advantage of this and given two people an opportunity to grow together. And if they're both willing to do that, the growth together that comes from that is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in sobriety. So what I know today is that when it comes to my relationship, if I'm not writing inventory on that or not doing some work around that, either I'm someone who's, and I just don't meet too many of these people in AA, or I'm asleep to what's really going on, and I'm missing out on a lot of the freedom that's available. So anyway, there you go, Katie. Hey, we're not taking a break. We're going to go right into it, and Katie's going to do the resentment inventory.
You can leave the time with you. Thank you. You want me to start over? Good job. Oh, he's taller than me. Okay, guys, you know what I want you guys to do? Would you mind standing up and sitting down about 5, 6, 7, 8 times? It'll help you get your blood moving and keep that dozing off. That nodding off is terrible when it doesn't have drugs involved. Yeah, give it a stretch. You could reach over to the person in front of you, work their shoulders, and then we'll all turn. Oh, yeah. And you can touch another human being. Now switch the other way. There we go. Look, and then we can dance. Okay, guys, let's get back down. It's always like herding cats. Are we ready? Perfectamundo. I'd give the official whistle, but I got lip gloss on. Okay. Yeah, that's with lip gloss or Botox in your top lip, the whole thing goes away. Okay, guys, we got to get quiet now. It's interesting. I love listening to Chad share because I know Chad really, really well, and that's one of the things that is. I don't know a lot of people in this room. I don't know how your home life is, but if anything, we want you to feel comfortable and confident that we are a group of misfits. We're people that would normally not mix. And if you've got this stuff going on, the greatest news you could ever have is to know that so do we, right? This relationships for alcoholics can be very, very challenging. Some people can pull it off with no problem. They get in a relationship, everything's great and groovy. When Charlie and I first got together, oh my God, first he was my best friend for 20 years, so it was like kissing your brother. It was so icky, so weird. And the fact that I even kissed him, I was in a blackout of some sorts, those emotional blackouts. But Joe had died, and it was just terrible. But we had, I knew him as my best friend. The first time he ever yelled at me, I started crying, and he goes, "Why are you crying?" I said, "You have never yelled at me." And I mean, I was so devastated. Charlie's a big man, and I remember one time I flung a plate at him, and he threw an Ugg at me, my Ugg shoe. Thank God it was an Ugg. But I mean, these are your spiritual speakers, okay? We were off the chain personalities. Charlie and I are exactly alike. So he never laid hands on me. That's a deal breaker. Infidelity is a deal breaker, and apparently relapse is a deal breaker. And I have these deal breakers only because I'm too self-centered to let God take me through them. If I would stay and let God do the work for me, I guarantee it would be a remarkable experience. But I know me. And that's the whole beauty of this. I hope you know you. And we're inventory writing fools. Sometimes I don't have to get past the third column, and I already see that I'm a hypocrite. I could be either person in this play. So, and this is a fair question for you to ask you, is when was the last time you wrote a 4-column inventory? And if it's been a couple of years, that's too long. That really is too long. And you don't even know it. I guarantee your head went, but I don't really have anything. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so once again, I love to hear inventory. If you ever want to scribble one out, now if you're somebody that writes a ton of inventory, let the other people step ahead of you in the line that hadn't written inventory in a couple of years, and then I'll get to yours. But I'm a big fan of writing inventory. Charlie and I and Chad was very much like a son to Charlie, and he was more like I was the cool aunt to Chad, and but. We absolutely loved Chad, and he became such a close part of the family, and that gets very dangerous in sponsorship, very dangerous. You get too close, all of a sudden, I don't like the clothes you're wearing, the boy you're dating, you know what I mean? It can get really muddy, so you got to be careful, and fair enough, we had, did you eat did you eat my muffin? Oh, yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. There comes that 3 kids in the family who got the mashed potatoes. So one of the things about Chad is they got really, really close, and it was a beautiful relationship. But Charlie had a hard time 10-stepping their relationship because Charlie had ideas of what he thought Chad should do. And I kept telling Charlie, this is not good, Charlie. We are not to be the arbitrator of anybody's sex life. That is a profound statement. And so Chad would go with us to a lot of these conferences, and Charlie had a ton of miles, and we just had a ball. And I'll never forget, the hotel was sold out, and Charlie said, "You can sleep on the couch." It wasn't a pull-out couch. It was just, here's our bed. It was a love seat. And here's the love seat over there. And I know this may be too much information for you, but I don't sleep with clothes on. I don't understand you people that sleep with clothes on. I feel like I'm in a straight jacket. And so we knew this. This was not new information. And so I get up to go to the bathroom, or I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom. And I said, "Chad, are you awake?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, close your eyes." And Charlie goes, "Absolutely not." And I thought I had all the faith in the world that Chad would not peek. And I've never gotten a straight answer out of him, but Charlie was like, absolutely not. Well, we're back sharing a room, and I have been, out of respect, trying to have something on. But in the middle of the night, we don't know this room. And I mean, I couldn't figure out where the damn light switch was. And I swear, and getting older, you're like this. And then you get to the bathroom, and now you got to make your way back, and I got no idea how the room is set up. It was comical. And Chad heard the door squeak, and he thought he was at home. And I said, well, I was having a crazy dream about rolling in the hay. So there you go. You're like, oh, my God, what is happening in this house? It is the coolest house ever. But are you guys real into your dreams? Oh, I find them fascinating. Just fascinating. I'm just entertained all night long with my dreams. You know, they're typically really good dreams. But and I think it's just comical how much I trust Chad. I trust Chad with my life. You know, and he can hear a piece of inventory, and I can hear his inventory, and I can just call him and just tell him I'm not doing well. He doesn't try to fix me. You know, he just listens, and he's a good listener, and I can tell he's not on his phone, and I feel very honored because I really do feel like I have two left shoes on right now. So for whatever that's worth, I can't figure out what's going on with my voice. I know what Charlie's going to say. And then when I'm sitting over there listening to Chad, I thought, this is so cool. And Todd, thank you so much for letting us do this, together. Because I'm grateful you didn't pick. There's a handful of people I wouldn't have done it with. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's still AA, okay? So Chad was talking about the fear inventory, and one of the things about fear, I like to tell stories about it. So we give you the clear-cut directions, but a story is helpful. See, I'm deathly afraid I'm not going to get it. Then I get it now. I'm deathly afraid I'm going to lose it. Because self-centered fear is this circle that you're not okay no matter what. If you think you see the fear and you face the fear, and then you get through it and you're okay, it typically doesn't work that way. So Joe was supposed to have that life insurance check, right, when we were going to go bribe the doctor. And I remember being panicked. I mean, waking up in the middle of the night. If you're waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, eyes pinging wide open, that is your adrenals are so stressed out that you're in more trouble than you think you are. Okay, being nudged awake at that time and going back to sleep, you're doing good physically. Your body will tell you when you're not doing good. And that eyes pinging open and that son of a, that kind of stuff, very, very dangerous. And so I'm waking up, I'm sweating, it's terrible, I'm in my 40s, and I get the check. And I open the check, I don't even take the check out of the envelope, and I look at it, and to be sure it was the amount of money, which was a substantial amount of money for me at the time. And I saw it, and I went into instant fear that I was going to spend it all because I'm irresponsible with cash. Never left. See, scared to death, I'm not going to get it now, I'm going to spend it all. And I spent it all. I did exactly what I was afraid of. And keep in mind, I'm in untreated alcoholism. And, debt is a big problem for an alcoholic. And people can talk to you about debt. Well, we need to do way more work than just talking about it. We got to put pen to paper. We got to get down to causes and conditions and really work this out. If you got a piece of business to take to God, you can't just throw a prayer at something like that. And one of the things, and accountability is always a good thing. And I had a guy at a conference come up to me, and he and I took an instant dislike to each other. You know those people in AA where you're like, I don't even know the guy, but he bugs me. Yeah. Took an instant dislike to each other. He comes up to me and he goes, so why didn't you give that check to somebody to hold for you? I thought, oh, well, where were you when I needed that piece of information? I looked at him and I said, because I would have caused a fight. I would have sliced their tires if they didn't give me the money. And it was absolutely unrealistic to give my money to somebody to hold. It would not have ever worked because I'd ruin a friendship over it. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not looking for a solution on the physical plane. I have to have a solution spiritually in my heart. If we want something to change, it's going to require pen to paper. And I'm telling you guys, I'm adamantly against texting. I'm adamantly against emails. You have to put pen to paper. It's methodical. There's a reason that you get these letters that are just spectacular that Bill Wilson wrote, because they're methodical and deep thinking. And pen to paper is the only way to go. The sex inventory, too. If I could change a few words in the big book, I would change the word sex to relationship. Because sometimes we think of the intimate act of sex. And trust me, some of us are in the fields with that, okay? And that is really, really challenging. But that's because you're not treating your alcoholism. Let me be very clear. If you can't stop that, it's because you're not treating your alcoholism. That's where you squirt out. And in this day and age, it's so simple to do any of that stuff. Gambling online, Charlie was obsessed with gambling online for free. Play money. And that's before we met Mark. I mean, we just squirted out everywhere you could. So on page 46, the terms of the agreement. Remember I said he provided what I needed if I keep close to him and perform his work well. Those are clear-cut directions. But I can't perform his work well. I got to get close to him, and then I got to get unblocked to stay close to him. So I'm living in this bungalow because I really enjoyed, my life was challenging. But I would tell you today that up to 17 years sober, I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I mean, life is hard, right? That's not new information. Life is challenging. People are difficult. But I liked my life. I loved my career. And I didn't see that I had a problem at all. And I had no idea I was completely asleep. Now, once again, you bring a room full of people in to talk about Katie behind a two-way glass, and I think it would have been pretty eye-opening. So I'm living in this bungalow, and I have no idea that God has a palace for me. And not only that, I had no idea. Charlie and I fought so badly when we were together. I mean, wowza bad. And Marty tried to get in the middle of it. One time she was going to do counseling. So he's sitting on one side of the table, I'm on the other, and she's sitting right here. And at one point, we're both standing up. I mean, Charlie was like a gorilla, rolled up on those knuckles, and we are screaming at each other. And Marty goes, I am in over my head. I'm in over my head. It's like, yeah, you are. I told you, this is a problem. We are dicey. Is there anybody in here that's dicey? Oh, praise God. We need to sit and have lunch, okay? Because we bring the heat. I mean, I'm passionate in best. We use mics in PPG. I can hear Mike the minute it goes out. So I had no idea I had this palace coming to me. And one of the things that I think is so awesome about this is for the longest time, I'd have people tell me, oh my God, you woke me up, you showed me this. And it just never really landed on me as, oh, you're wonderful, you're great. Just never did. I thought, that's just my duty, my job. And when I lost Charlie, I don't know what has happened, but that statement has stopped me in my tracks. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, honey, for two people who were going to kill each other in a relationship, God kept us together long enough to wake up a lot of people. And I just can't even begin to tell you how real that is today. Maybe it took Charlie being gone for me to realize, that we knew we had something special. I hope you know you have something special. Everyone in this room has something pretty doggone special that God has. But that's just something that I wanted to let you know because, this palace I live in now, it's lonely. That I can work with, but God has blessed me for the last several weeks of all the funny things that Charlie made me laugh about. And I'm walking through the house just laughing out loud because he was so goddamn funny. We're on a plane one time, and I'm just going to tell some stories because you guys got me at the first one of these after not having Charlie. We're on a plane. I'm so pissed off at him on Southwest. I don't want him anywhere in my eyesight. You could see us in an airport and we didn't even look like we knew each other. And, it's like, he said my wife would walk away going, there's the hand, don't. And so I get on the plane and first he's sitting down and then I get on the plane, I'm about 4 rows up. And he was like, oh, no. So he comes up and he tries to sit next to me and I get up and move around. Now the plane is loading. So this is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And it was not just me. And so I moved about 4 times, and then I was just stuck, and he couldn't get in. And I thought, Gotcha, gotcha. And all of a sudden he goes, I hear him back there, he goes, so where are you going to college? He's got some little hot college chick next to him, and he's talking so loud. And I swear I thought, oh, put my earbuds in, it's like, oh my God. He and I, it was just comical how we would be. But I loved it. Now, there's a lot of people. Charlie said, I have guys come up to me and go, man, I couldn't handle Katie. And he goes, I bet you couldn't. We loved what we had. It worked for us. So the fourth step is a consideration of how self shows up, right? Self is, I know everything you could know about me, right? This isn't new information. I did learn, I had a piece of inventory with Lorenz. Mike Lorenz is a remarkable individual. And I remember, and I'd done 1,000 pieces of inventory with Chad. And Chad had mentioned this one time, but I'm sure people mentioned it quite a bit more than I heard. But Lorenz said, Katie, what would happen if somebody had an opinion and I totally disagreed with it? It's always one of those things. And he said, what would happen if you took the high road? And I went, Mike, I never have. Not only have I never taken the high road, I don't even know how to get there. That was a eye-opening conversation we had. So he said, but more interesting, I'm wondering, what is the fear that drives that? Because remember, I don't always see fear. And I said, well, I'm afraid if not me, who? I mean, who's gonna fix the problems of the world? And so he said, okay, let's look at this. Let's take this exercise. I'm floored that I have never taken the high road. My family is argumentative. We just go in balls to the wall. And so I'm at a conference. I am the invited guest to speak. It's about 500, 600 people. And the guy behind the podium is trying to read how it works, and the crowd is not quieting down. And I was raised in AA, where the minute somebody's behind a podium, the room must go silent. That's just the rules. And this guy can't get these people to calm down, and he's just reading how it works, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, okay, I'm the invited guest. You don't need to get behind the podium screaming, we have an AA meeting going here. Sit down, shut up. That's what I would have done. It was building inside of me. And all of a sudden, my buddy John, the taper, comes out from behind his taping area, gets behind the podium, and he does it. I mean, he yelled, we have an AA meeting going here. And all of a sudden, I realized, if not me, who? Because Lorenz said, Katie, there's plenty of people that'll stand up and do something. You don't have to do it all. And I mean, I started going, wow, take the high road. So I don't have to argue with this guy, even though he's wrong, really? And it was a remarkable path. It absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. Somebody's having a problem 5 people ahead of me at the bank. I mean, I'm the kind of person who walks up and goes, ma'am, I don't think you're hearing her. She's pretty clear on what she's saying, like you need a mediator. Tap me in. That commercial Progressive. Tap me in. I can handle this. And so what happened is, this stuff rolls downhill, so my sponsees are all getting the high road. And so what happened that was so interesting is going through Charlie's death, everything Charlie had his hands in, and if you knew my husband, his hands were in 800 pots. He's very big about AA. We did the taco breakfast. We did the barbecue. We did 9,000 things in AA. He ran his company. 3 men in the office. We lost one to a heart attack about 4 months before Charlie died. That was devastating, but Ace Golf Netting was taking a hit to the hull. And then we had our real estate, and he was the mayor of Mayberry, and he wasn't charging these people nearly what the current rent should be. And we had a very expensive loan against that. And that all fell in my lap. I mean, you guys, I retired in 2012 when the fax machine was alive and well, okay? Apparently, that's gone by the way of the dinosaur. You know what I mean? I'm like, just fax it to me. And everybody's like, fax it? Everything's online. I've been humiliated. Just terrible. And I've found that I'm not taking the high road. I should have walked away from that guy back there. I should not have done what I did. Because I know that's the old Katie. And that could have gotten really ugly, right? I was the first responder. And when he got mad and looked at me, the little slit of his eyes, it's like, oh, he's angry. Okay, let's just tap out. Bye-bye. I'm gone now. But you see what I mean? There was a time I would have. So now I'm heightenedly aware that I'm not taking the high road. And that's going to be some work to get back to. And people say, well, you've gone through this. And you go, oh, no, please do not give me an excuse. No, this is very important. I have got to get back to taking the high road. I don't need to solve every problem, right? So, and this is really a tough thing because especially if you're a problem solver with a calmer attitude than I have, right? There's lots of people that are problem solvers that don't have the aggression that I have. Same problem. So this 4-step is a consideration of how self shows up. You may be like smoke in a room and stealth. You come in, nobody met you, nobody saw you, you didn't talk to anybody, and then you take it out. You're suffering from the same blockage that I'm suffering from. It's just showing up differently. Resentment is, these are the 3 inventories that Chad was doing. Resentment is you didn't do what I wanted you to do. Fear is I'm afraid you're not going to do what I want you to do. And harms, right, the sex inventory is harms to others, is I feel guilty for doing what I did to you, right? And that's typically how each of the inventories show up, so that we are narrowing this down to Katie's inventory. It says on page 64, though our decision, what decision was that? The 3rd step was a vital, which means key to life, and crucial step. It could have little or permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves that were blocking us. And that's blocking us from the sunlight of the Spirit. Don't lose sight of how important pen to paper is. Once again, and I'm not here to make you feel guilty if you haven't done that. Oh, you're just going from some position to guilt. That it's just a fact. Pen to paper is a must if you think you believe with what Chad and I are saying. But if you haven't done it, don't beat yourself up. As a matter of fact, in an evening review, if you haven't done an evening review forever, I didn't do one ever for 17 years. Now, if I don't do it, I don't beat myself up. I'm just factual on my paper. Wow, Father God, I haven't done this in a while. I'm going to get back on the saddle. Because, see, you don't want to go from self-righteous to self-pity. It's never good. Lots of times in inventory, that happens. If people don't know not to do it, they do it. So it's very important to know not to do it. So it says, so we get down to causes, column 2, and conditions, column 3. Everything is a cause and effect. Cause and effect. And would that be, Chad, physical science?
Yes.
Okay. I do not know what that class was ever about. And I just remember the teacher, and I loved him. And I thought, what is physical science? Chad explained it to me. He's a school teacher. So this is about how I show up, right? It says no regular inventory usually goes broke. Wow. So that doesn't just say you do one inventory, one and done. It's a fact-finding, that's my job, and you're on the fact-facing mission. So I am listening to your inventory. So my job is to find out the facts. And let me tell you, God blessed me with being remarkable at hearing inventory. I mean, this is not lost on me. I absolutely love it. I think it was all those years in codependency group therapy, and I just loved the counselor. And I watched her like Charlie says, like a cat watching you eat a tuna fish sandwich, just watched her, and I thought, okay, I know where she connected the dots, and I just love doing it. It's an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade, right? How I show up. The truth is not what I think is the truth, and then I do the inventory. I find out that it's not even close to the truth. It's one object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. Don't go to from self-righteous to self-pity. A resentment inventory, I'm right, they're wrong, we need to do something. There's been an injustice in the world, right? And then after you see where you made decisions based on self, you're at self-pity. So really be aware of that. And then it says, if the owner of a business is to be successful, that's just what us guys that want to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values, right? Values are my old ideas. Family, work, AA. We have an opinion on everything in our mind. Everything. Don't fool yourself. Everything. And anything that's hurt, threatened, or interfered with. That's typically how we go through life. Now, once again, I don't want to make this like you don't know what I'm talking about. But this is for the guy who's got brand new time and the guy who's got multiple years. We fall in between there with the statements I'm making. So you just have to ask yourself, what guy am I? And be very careful. If you think you're the guy that's doing fine and you haven't written inventory in some time, don't be fooled by that. That's really, really true. Don't be fooled by that. Charlie always liked to say, if you look at the columns in the inventory in the big book, Mr. Brown, his attention to my wife, wants my job, told her I have a mistress. We said we need the best AA t-shirt is, Mr. Brown needs his ass kicked. Somebody got Charlie one with that on it. It's so funny, when people read it, they'll know what it is, and you don't, not wearing it to AA, but somewhere else, and people have stopped him. It's great. So my old ideas, remember, are going to be in the third column. We're going to do about maybe 10 minutes more, so hang in there, guys. So my old ideas are in the third column. Remember, column 1, 2, and 3 of a resentment inventory are still all about me. I get to lay it on the line. So my self-esteem is how I value myself. Stay away from the check marks. The check marks, unfortunately, are no value to you. You have to go in and write what's in that third column. I know the big book just had it out, but these guys knew what they were talking about with these words. To us, it kind of fell on deaf ears. So the self-esteem is how I value myself. Remember, I was saying I'm a good mother, but I'm writing inventory on somebody because I'm really a better mother than you are. See, it's always going to be, because of the inventory, I'm better than you. And I still think I am. But it really catches up with me at times. Chad is very good at bringing me down gently, because if you come at me too hard and too, I can't hear you. My sponsor's the kind of person who, she's got a whole lot of Southern in her. You know, Texas, we consider Texas, Texas. It's not the South. You guys agree, because you're in the South. And Texas is a whole different ballgame. But Marty was raised in the South, and she'd always, I tell her the heartbreaking 10th step. She'd go, oh, honey. And I'm like, and then she just knocks my head right in the dirt every time I fall for it. There's something about that, oh, honey. And I thought, oh, my God, this time she's really going to be on my side? No. So my pride is no one could, should, or would, right? So my pride is always the voice that goes, what were you thinking? How dare you do that? This is absolutely unacceptable, right? That's my pride. My self-esteem is, don't you see who I am? How could you have done that? I'm just a good person. I mean, I put my whole self-worth in self-esteem. And this could be over that somebody ate the last piece of cake at the office. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a big deal. And then my ambitions is what I want to have happen, right? What if I could write the script, how would it have looked? And let me tell you, we are all about writing the script. I mean, I'd really like to hand the script out to everybody and tell you what you need to do to make me be okay. And then my security is what I need to have happen, which typically means if God were here and he said, Katie, I'm sorry you're hurting so bad here, you're so frustrated, what would God's suggestion be to me? It's always that I want peace. I really want peace for everybody. And then personal relationships are my deep-seated beliefs on how the relationship should be, right? I've got my old ideas, and they are rocking and rolling. Sex relations, now I don't get into this much, but I know Chad does, and there's a lot of people that do, so I listen to it, but I don't typically write it on mine. Sex relations is real men are, real women should, that kind of stuff. In this circumstance, even though it has nothing to do with physical sex, it's just being a woman or being a man, right? And there's lots of stuff behind that. You would be really surprised. I almost got on an outside issue there. And then pocketbooks, how is your money threatened in this deal, right? No one should, could, or would again. My self-esteem and pride will always stand in the way of my security. So my security is what God would like. And my self-esteem and my pride are going to keep bucking heads right there. Because this is me telling you how it should go. I know, God, take a knee right now. I know how this should go. And God is just like, oh, Katie. I mean, stubborn and hard-headed. And most of the time it works for me. So still on page 64, it says, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which which caused our failure. So you're looking for your flaws. It says, being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what had defeated us, we consider self's manifestation. So do you believe that self has defeated you? Oh, hands down, no problem, no doubt. And it's so funny because when Chad says he's the ego turned inward, we were all out to dinner up in Jersey a couple of weeks ago, and I just was watching Chad, and I thought, oh, he's frustrated. And he's 90% of the time a happy-go-lucky guy. And I thought, this is interesting because, see, we think we get away with certain things. Now, sometimes we want to make sure our significant other knows I'm frustrated. But sometimes, this is not a fight worth having. And so it's when you really get to know people and see people. And once again, Randy's saying, have you written inventory? Because I was on a roll about this individual. And I thought, well, the answer is yes, but that was about 3 months ago. Probably need to revisit that. And you know what it is? I know now it's fear, because it's got to do with money. And right now, nobody's getting a nickel from me. I'm not talking about, I don't want to talk about money. And so anytime somebody says, hey, this guy might need money, I'm like, oh, no. So see, I can cover it up with resentment, but the truth is it's fear. And it's on principle, so it's not even factual. So go figure there. It says, to conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. I'd never seen these words in my life. And I'm like, is somebody watching me? Really? Because that's what I always did. Column 1 and 2, we did on a bar stool. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I always drank at the Chili Parlor. It was just the best place in Austin. And it was back when Austin was so cool, 360,000 people. And people would say, what are you guys talking about? And I'd always say this, solving the problems of the world. And then we'd get back to, and that is truly what my life early on was all about. Everyone's wrong, and they need me to tell them how to get this shit in order. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us, and we stayed sore. And boy, that's true. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seems to win. Our moments of triumph are short-lived. Tell me if this is the first time you've ever heard that broken down. Raise your hand. Oh, I'm very impressed. Yeah, I remember the first time I ever heard it, and I didn't even give it the time of day. I remembered reading it, that yada, 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 yada. Now, I am really about what it's saying. See, life's not coming at me, it's coming from me. And let me tell you, that's a whole different way to look at life. We turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. What? The key to the future is in column 4. That's the best part of inventory. Like I said, I can write 3 columns and already see that I'm a hypocrite, and I'm absolutely freed by realizing I could be either person in this play. Charlie and I are on our way to the airport. It seemed we were always on our way to the airport. And this Escalade comes sliding in and almost hit us, scared the crap out of me. We're all going about 70. And he didn't even stop at the stop sign, just slid past us, scared me to death. And I remembered right at that moment, I said, you know what? I could be either person in this play. I could be the guy driving crazy. Anybody else capable of driving crazy? Oh, yeah. I'm capable of driving crazy. Or I could be the one who got scared. See, that's the hypocrite. The freedom is realizing you're a hypocrite. Because when it's done to me, I want justice, and it's just this and this and this. But when you're writing inventory, you're the guy in column 2. So keep that in mind. That's a very important key you want to keep in your pocket. We were prepared to look at this from an entirely different angle. Now, when I start inventory with the new guy, I ask him, are you willing to look at this at an entirely different angle? Because I'm not going to have argument. If you sit here and want to defend column 2, we're done. We're done. I have earmarked 4 hours, and I'm not doing that. And I've only had 2 people do that to me, and I close the book, and they're like a little kid. They go, no, I'm sorry. I said, oh, no, I was very clear with you in the beginning. We're not going to argue about you being right in column 2 because we're not getting anywhere. This is a waste of all of our time. And it's been years since I did that, but boy, I did it. And if they're hearing this CD, they're like, that was me. Mm-hmm. Did it twice. We begin to see that now listen to this one. We begin to see that the world and its people really do dominate us. In that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, Well, so you're telling me this isn't even true? Could be a made-up story in my head of what they thought. It's so funny, the little gal out there that's dressed up like the grape and grapevine. Chad goes, what do you think? I think she's a plum. And Chad said something I didn't even pay attention to. When I was walking out there, she goes, do you know what this is? I said, a plum? She goes, it's grapes for the grapevine. I went, that is so darn sweet. That is so cute. But see, I just see something. My head tells me what it is, and then I rock on. So it says, in that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancy or real, had the power to actually kill. Now, that's not a physical death, but that is definitely a miserable death. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. That's some profound stuff, guys. And it says this was our course, so we're going to launch out on page 66 to the top of page 67. We realize that the people who wronged us, this is the sick man prayer, between column 3 and column 4. This is crucial that you absorb this. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, though we did not like their symptoms, column 2, and the way they disturbed us, column 3. They, like ourselves, here's the hypocrite, were sick people too. We asked God to help us show them the same patience, tolerance, and pity we'd grant a sick friend. I mean, that's a profound prayer. Please let me see that, I mean, even in a car accident, if somebody was wronged and they started to defend themselves, and we're going to have a problem there until the police come. But if they hit you and then they say they're sorry, we're doing okay. So you see that storyline can go either way. And it says, referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes, not our part, our own mistakes and faults. And in column 4, this is where I really like the meat on the bone. Column 4, we take selfish and break it down into 5 types of self. So we do self-righteous, self-reliant, self-pity, self-seeking, and self-centered. And each of these, you'll have this on tape too, so you'll be able to write that down. So self-righteous is I'm better than you. Self-reliance is how I run the show. Self-pity is poor me, less than, this isn't fair. Self-seeking is how I make getting my way happen. Self-centered is why do you want it to go your way? What is it so much about you to be driven? Dishonesty comes in 3 forms: lying, omission, and true delusion. So flat people crap me up. They go, I don't lie. I said, well, you just lied saying you don't lie. For heavens, everybody lies. Might be a little white lie, but everybody lies. You know, it's a part of our makeup. You know, somebody asks you a quick question and you just go, oh, yeah, I did it last week. And my head goes, you didn't do that last week. Well, that's okay. We're moving past that storyline right now. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like a deal breaker and I got to go up to somebody and go, oh, my God, a minute ago I just lied to you, and fall on my sword. You got to be really careful in that amends process that you don't fall on your sword. And then frightened is all my old ideas. Now on page 19, I love this line. The viewpoint and shortcomings of others and a respect for their opinions are my guiding light. My very life as an ex-prom drinker depends upon my constant thought of others and how I can help meet their needs. Wowza, that is some tough stuff. That is no bull. And then I'm just going to touch this because we're going to break for lunch in about 3 minutes. But the man on page 73 for the 5th step, Chad's going to do 5, 6, 7. The man on page 73 is profound. He did not continue to do his work. Most people look at this guy as the new guy. I'm like, oh, no. This is untreated alcoholism sitting in the rooms, making a meeting because you got to have another meeting. You're not doing well. And this is, many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discuss ourselves with other persons when we see good reason why we should do so. This is the 5th step. The best reason is if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking, which says we continue to take inventory. It says time after time, it says newcomers, but just think about the guy with time, have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their life. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Remember, sex, money, Some people have more babies. I mean, there is thousands of the exercise. There's so many things that we shove in that hole. Men, almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. Now, here it is. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. And now remember, most people are thinking this is the original 4-step. See this with new eyes. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egotism and fear. They only thought they had been humbled. They had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone all their life story. More than most, the alcoholic leads a double life. Now, here's the part where, wowza, you want the AA people to see this certain guy. You go home, Charlie, you say, kick the dog, yell at the kids and all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, I was a yeller, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it can be problematic when you watch your children yell at their kids. You're like, believe I taught that. So it says this is the double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistencies are made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Now, I'm telling you what, when you're in the house by yourself behind closed doors, watch what you do. This is not good, bad, right, wrong. This is no judgment. But this is something that you really want to look at. And this has to be objectionable to you. If it's objectionable to the rest of the world, that's not always going to stop me. But if in my heart I know what I'm doing I don't like, then I have to look at this. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. I always say, be very careful with flirting. Flirting will lead us to the key in the door at the hotel, right? It's all innocent until it gets not innocent. Spending money we don't have. Losing it in the Starbucks line. Driving like a crazy person. Yelling at the kids. It says, coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. Remember I told you, I've been in blackouts before, sober, that you just snap out of it and you go, oh my God, what did I just do? That deal back there with that guy. That is so out of character for me in these days. And I realized when I poked the pig, as I like to call it, and got him mad, now that was an unpredictable man. Are you gentlemen all in agreement on that? That was unpredictable. I didn't have any backup yet. Poking, until he went. And I thought, okay, need to step away. That's the kind of stuff that when I'm in the moment, I don't even know I'm in the moment. So are you guys following with what I'm trying to get you to see? As you can get so scared you don't even know what you're doing. Or you can get so angry you don't even know what you're doing. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone may have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes the memories far, far inside him. This is no 10-step, no spot check inventory, none of that. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension, and that makes for more. In the book, it says drinking. I say thinking. So thanks, guys. We're going to break for lunch, and Chad and I are here if you want to talk about anything.